Hello, hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. And thank you for joining us on this lovely Wednesday evening here in Toronto and wherever you happen to be tuning in. I hope it's a wonderful evening for you as well. I hope you are prepared to learn all about the art of marketing and pricing with none other than Alan Carson. But before I pass the reins on over, a little bit of formality first. My name is Brian. I'm the onboarding and training specialist at Horizon. And along the way, if you have questions, obviously for Alan, they'll be earmarked for the Q&A, but anything I can do technical-wise, feel free to submit the questions into the Q&A, which I'll point out momentarily, and I'll be glad to help you out. And speaking of the man of the hour, Mr. Alan Carson, president of Carson Dunlop. How you doing tonight, Alan?
I'm doing well, thanks. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you. I'm eager to hear some of your words of wisdom, but again, before you unleash, just give me a second here. I'm going to tell people how they can participate. Want to make sure everyone's familiar with how they can engage us this evening. So the control panel is going to be on the right side of your screen, much like this example. 3 main functions. Expand or minimize using that orange button. For the most part, you're going to select your audio, and you can hide that away, ask a question, click on it, brings it back up. Speaking of audio, most people have already selected their preferred audio method and are likely listening in by their speakers. But if you don't have speakers, you can select phone call. There'll be a toll-free number you can dial in and listen by phone. As far as questions, please feel free to submit your questions at any point in time. You have to type your question, though, due to the number of people in attendance, easier for management's sake, but I promise I'll address all of your questions, and then Alan will answer them during the Q&A. All right, Alan, enough of me. Let's turn to the man of the hour. If you just give me a second, I'm going to pass the reins on over, and then I can jump into the Q&A.
Welcome. Thank you for being here, Brian. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for all the work setting all this up. I am probably going to ramble on for about 90 minutes, so get yourself comfortable, get preferred beverage, and sit back. And I am going to try to mix things up a little bit tonight. I'm going to talk about some simple ideas where you go, well, of course, that's what everybody does. That makes perfect sense. But I'm also going to sprinkle in some things that are a little bit unusual and maybe outside the box a little bit. So things like spending $1,000 to win an agent, how a small price change makes a huge profit change, and how sometimes actually losing business can help you win. So let's get on with it. As Brian says, feel free to ask your questions in the chat box and we will talk about them at the end. I've broken the evening up into 3 segments, so I'll start with some intro and guiding principles. You're going to get subjected to my philosophy. Sorry for that, but it's who I am. You have to understand how I think to kind of understand the tips. So we'll get into 10 tips, and if we have time, we'll talk about pricing and why most people struggle with it. Let's see what we can talk about here. Let's get right into the intro and so on. I wanted to start with a definition that I think is important, and that is, what is the difference between marketing and sales? And here's my soundbite. Marketing makes the phone ring and sales picks it up. And what I mean by that is marketing is a one-to-many outreach. So it might be an office presentation you do, it might be a webinar, it might be advertising, your pamphlets, your brochures, websites, social media, your blogs, all that kind of stuff. So marketing is that one-to-many outreach. Sales, on the other hand, is a one-to-one exchange. So it might be in person, although with COVID, that's harder to do than it used to be. It might be by phone, it might be by email, it might be by text, it might be by Zoom, Teams, Google Hangout, GoToMeeting, one of the 46 other things that we've got to communicate electronically. But the difference is the sale is that one-to-one conversation is the way I think about it. And you might say, well, why does it matter? What's the difference between sales and marketing? And the thing that I think makes it matter is that I see this with all home inspectors, and I'm going to throw myself into this mix as well. And that is that most of us are more comfortable with marketing, but we hate sales. And why is that? Because with marketing, you never feel the rejection. In marketing, you can put your message out there, you put up a website, and you never feel the rejection. With sales, it being a one-on-one exchange and a one-on-one conversation, you have that risk of being rejected, and it feels personal. So I can tell you that based on that, most home inspectors will play in the marketing sector a little bit, some more than others, but very few want to go into the sales world because of the personal exposure. So we'll keep that in mind as we go through. And I'll try and provide some options for you on both. Now, I also wanted to say that home inspection is unlike most other professions. Most professions, most businesses have clients, and we certainly do. We have home buyers, and for some of us, we have home sellers as well. But what's unique about home inspection is the intermediaries. And the biggest one, of course, is the real estate agent, but sometimes lawyers, lenders, title companies, and so on, they can be intermediaries as well. Obviously, the agent is the one that we come across almost every day. So it's a complexity in our business that doesn't apply if you're in so many other businesses. And it adds such a layer of challenges. And when I talk about the power of intermediaries and what the real estate agent can do, this happens to us from time to time, and I suspect it happens to others. So you'll get an outreach from a prospective client. They might have seen your website, been referred by a family member, a friend, or a colleague, and you have a great conversation, you think you're all set up, and then they call and cancel the inspection. Well, what happened? Well, their agent changed their mind. Their agent said, oh yeah, you were going to use Carson Dunlop. Well, they're fine, but I work with somebody who's just as good, charges less money. I know he's available. I've been working with him for a long time. He or she is great. And so the agent can sometimes undo your marketing and can change the dynamic in such a way that you lose the business. So the power of the intermediary, in my opinion, not to be neglected. And I understand there will be some of you sitting out there listening who are saying, I don't want to work with real estate agents. I don't like them. They don't get me. More power to you. You go ahead and do that. I'm just telling you, after 42 years, this is the conclusion we have come to, that the agent is a powerful intermediary, and it's a force in our business that we pay attention to. Okay, why does that make a difference that we have an intermediary? The difference is because not everybody has the same needs, the same goals, the same outcomes they're looking for when we're talking about buying a home, getting a home inspection. So the agent has their perspective and their objective, the home buyer has theirs, and the home seller has a different one. So different people, different audiences that you speak to have different things they're trying to achieve. And I'm going to suggest to you, and I'm going to drill it into you tonight. And by the way, no apologies for some repetition tonight. I'm doing that by design. So the key here to me is different messages for different people, different solutions for different problems. And that's a theme that I'm going to pick up on through the evening. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that marketing doesn't begin, and frankly, sales doesn't begin until you understand your client's world, until you see their problems, until you know what they're trying to accomplish or what issues they're trying to overcome or resolve. The $5 phrase for it is customer-centric or consumer-centric marketing, but I think of it as just put the client first. Harry Beckwith, who's written a ton of books about sales and marketing, guy I very much respect, says your task is not to perform, it is to satisfy. And that we'll talk about a little bit more as the evening goes on. And I'm going to accuse most home inspectors of focusing on the perform, not the satisfying. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. By the way, if I ruffle your feathers a little bit tonight, I hope you're okay with that. It's absolutely my intent. So I want to get you bristling a little bit. I want to get you questioning me. I want you to challenge. Don't accept what I'm saying. Think it through. Make your own decision. You don't need to agree with me. I don't really care. My hope is you'll walk away with one thing, but who knows? So here's what I'm going to suggest to you. What the client sees is not what most home inspectors think they see, which is to say that clients are not measuring how good your home inspection is. How good a job did they do? The reality is they can't measure it. Just like when I take my car into the shop, I can't tell if the mechanic knows what he's doing. I trust him. He's a mechanic. He knows what he's doing. I think our clients feel the same about home inspectors. They are going to say, I assume you're competent or you wouldn't be in the home inspection profession. So by all means, we should do work that we are proud of. And our work, as we all know, is incredibly challenging at a whole bunch of different levels. And you've seen my definition of what a home inspection really is if you've been watching for a while. I won't go into that tonight, but I'm going to suggest to you that a really well done home inspection and a well produced report is a minimum table stakes kind of thing when we're thinking about growing and building a home inspection business. I'm going to tell you that what clients really see is not how clever you were to identify the fact that the bathroom exhaust fan discharges into a plumbing stack. What we're going to find is that the clients judge you on the things that they can evaluate and measure. And that might be your website. It might be how you answered the phone, how the phone call went. Did they feel listened to? Did they feel important? What your vehicle looks like when you pull up to the inspection, what you look like when you spill out of your vehicle. Did you smile? Did you engage them? What were the first things you said to them? What was your manner and what was your attitude throughout the inspection? Patient, caring, interested, and engaged, or aloof, rushed, and a little bit brusque? It's all about how you made them feel. That's what they remember. It's dead wrong when you have all the training, all the focus, all the great work we do in a highly technical world. And I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, you get judged on way more superficial things. Okay, let me get into my guiding principles. And these are some overarching things that I think probably influence my perspective on marketing and sales and frankly on conducting business in general. So guiding principle number one is when you think about working with others, it's not about you or your company. It's about your client and your customer. It's about what they need. It's solving their problems. So every time you start a sentence with I or we, you're talking about yourself and your features, your benefits, your credentials, whatever. Clients are generally speaking not as interested in that as you asking them what they're concerned about with this house, what their goals are they planning any changes? If you can turn the conversation to them rather than to you, I think you have cleared a whole bunch of hurdles. So I'm going to also tell you that that's the hardest thing to remember because home inspectors are people and people have a favorite topic, and that's themselves and what they know the most about. And I'm the same, home inspectors are the same, real estate agents are the same. So the art is remembering it's not about you talking about yourself to others. It's about you asking questions, listening actively, and responding with understanding. So high-level guiding principle. Here's a guy who I think summed it all up for me. Richard Branson says, a business is simply an idea to make other people's lives better. And if you can understand what would make your client's life better, you are onto something and you can run with that. And we are so guilty of assuming we know what's important to people because we know what's important to us. It's really hard to harness that and hold it back, but I'm going to suggest to you that that is very powerful if you can do that and put their thoughts, interests, and concerns at the front, middle, and end of the conversation. Guiding principle number two, home inspectors can't possibly be all things to all people. And there's a very smart guy named Seth Godin who talks about finding the smallest viable audience for your business that you can, and then focusing on meeting their needs. And this might be particularly important to the newer people getting into the business. It's very daunting, it's very broad, it's very all-encompassing. But if you can focus, and the focus might be geographic, it might be focusing on a certain type of house in the downtown area or in a rural area. You might focus on meeting the needs of rural properties with outbuildings, with well, with septic. It might be focusing on houses in a certain price range. There are all kinds of things that you might look to where you can be more expert, more focused, and target your market. We work in a market of over 6 million people with thousands of real estate agents. We can't possibly impact all of those real estate agents. So we find the smallest viable audience that makes business sense to us, and we focus on those. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So instead of trying to eat a whole elephant, find something small and focused and make your marketing work around that. So guiding principle number 2. On to number 3. Generally speaking, people love stories. And I'm going back for tens of thousands of years. It's how we have communicated, how we have taught, how we have learned. People love stories. Now here's the catch. It can't always be a story about you. And in fact, in the home inspection profession and in the marketing of it, it should rarely be about you. People love stories, but they love stories about themselves or people who are like them. I can see myself in this story. I can identify with them. They can see themselves as the heroes. And so when people are engaged and in a story, they want to be able to see, oh, here's a challenge. They've got the same problem I have. And here's how they overcame it. And here's how they won. And if you win, the reward is money, status, a warm, safe, dry house, a great lifestyle, a family that's raised in a comfortable environment. And if you fail, it's going to be a money pit. It's going to be miserable. It's going to be financial stress. It's going to be failure to you, your friends, your family, your colleagues. So all stories have all of those elements. And if you think about that, it's a very helpful way to focus on your client. Guiding principle number 4, we tend to like people who are like us. We are tribal. We have been tribal since the beginning. So where that's relevant in marketing today is you want to be like your client. You want to find common ground. And one of the great ways to do that is to start the conversation by asking questions about what's important to them. Is this your first house? Are you moving from in town or out of town? What has brought you to this point? And get their story. And as they tell you their story, you should be looking for things that you can connect with, whether they have pets, whether they have kids, whether they've moved here because of some special interest. It might be sports. I would suggest staying away from things like politics and religion, but finding common ground that's safe is absolutely critical. And avoiding distancing, other than, of course, the social distancing required for COVID-19, but avoid distancing yourself by dismissing some of the things that people say. And if someone says, well, this is what's really important to me about a house, you don't want to say, that doesn't really matter. That's not important, or don't worry about that. Dismissing people's concerns creates distance. So you want to be an empathetic, active listener, and you want to validate what they're telling you and recognize it as important. Even if it's not important to you, it's clearly important to them. People feel better with those who think the same way they do. And so that's what clubs are all about, associations are all about. There's a million examples. So finding some common ground and connecting with people. I think it's what most of you do intuitively anyway, but I think it's a good guiding principle. Principle number 5, marketing is problem solving. Marketing is not selling something to somebody they don't want or need. That is not marketing. Marketing is helping your client solving a problem. Richard Branson said, business is an idea that is built around making someone's life better. That's the focus of marketing, solving a problem. And by the way, it's even more powerful when you allow them to solve the problem. And this is where it gets a little trickier and a little more elegant. So instead of you taking care of them, you are the enabler. So in an ideal world, it's not you that saved them from this bad house. It's them telling the story where they say, I found this great home inspector and we avoided this money pit. And so if they're the hero of the story, you've had a better result and they will remember you and recognize you more. So keeping it about them. Guiding principle number 6, once is not enough. I threatened you with some repetition tonight. Most ads that you see, whether they're radio, television, newspaper, you see them a bunch of times. And there's a reason for that, because most of us miss most of the messages that are thrown at us. We get several thousand a day. Why wouldn't we miss most of them? So the noise, the distractions, the lack of focus, it's hard for people to pay attention. So you have to say it again and again, and it takes time to earn trust. So when you're talking about marketing, repetition is fine. By the way, proof in that, when we do a home inspection, what percentage of what you say to a client on site do you think they actually understand and absorb? Right, not 100%, right? I don't know what number you gave, but it was not 100%. How much of that information that they did understand do they retain until the next day? Some smaller percentage, right? How much of that information do they retain 30 days down the road? I'm going to suggest to you that number approaches 0 pretty quickly. And so the communication is not durable. Communication is absolutely transient and short term. And that's why we need to keep delivering it consistently. I've told you that before is something that you should never worry about having to say. Of course, you've told it to them before, but you need to keep telling it to them to help them understand and remember. Okay, let's move on to the tips that are a little bit more specific and built around the guiding principles in my philosophy. So I told you at the outset, I'm going to talk about some simple, straightforward things, and I'm going to talk about some things that are a little more complex. This one couldn't be more simple. And when I say simple, it doesn't mean easy. And the reason I know that is I keep screwing this up. It's so simple to say, and my dad, who was one of the smartest people I know, said to me, Alan, if you just do what you said you would do, when you said you would do it, you're going to beat 95% of your competition. Show up on time, do the job, do it well, get it done, and you have won in business. I didn't believe him for a second. Well, I'll tell you what, my experience with customer service lately reminds me what a smart guy my dad was. And so few people in the world, at least in my world, are able to do exactly what they promised me they would do when they said they would do it. And I can think of every example in every walk of life. So dead easy, dead simple, but are you absolutely consistent in doing it? Do you do exactly the same inspection, letter perfect every time, same order, deliver the same crisp, elegant report? And are you on time at the inspection? And I might say that on time probably means before your client, so often 10 or 15 minutes before. And do you deliver the report on time? I don't care what on time means to you, but whatever you tell your client, I'll have the report to you by tomorrow noon. Get it to them well before that. Under promise and over deliver. It's so simple, but when you promise same day report delivery and you deliver it to them the next morning at 8 a.m., their first reaction is the home inspector did not live up to her commitment. They did not meet their deadline. And that hurts your credibility and that hurts your business. You're probably not going to see that written down anywhere coming back to you, But I can promise you, being 2 minutes late for an inspection leaves a mark on your reputation and your brand. And everybody dismisses it. And most of us, showing up and saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm late, the traffic was, they don't hear that. The only part they remember is that you were late. So dead simple, but hard to execute on, especially in a big city with lots of traffic. There's a million things going on. There are 101 reasons why you can't execute on this, but if you can, you are in an elite group and you have a huge leg up on your competition. And I know you don't believe me because you're thinking it's so darn simple. It's simple, but it's not easy. Okay. Trick number 2. It is a trick because it's a confusing way to think about the world. Would you spend 1,000 marketing dollars to have a real estate agent use you? Well, what person in their right mind would do that? Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. First of all, do you know where your business comes from? Does it come from buyers? Does it come from real estate agents? Does it come from sellers? You've got to know that before you start marketing. I can tell you that 76% of our business comes from realtor referrals. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that 76% of our inspections get booked by agents, because sometimes the client will call and book. But if you ask who referred them and how they found you, that's what makes up our 76%. So we have a lot of real estate agents who do call and book the inspection. Sometimes it's the client, but the client's calling on the real estate agent's referral. So we keep track of those. So we focus on the agent for a couple of reasons. When you're thinking about marketing to either clients or to agents, here are some of the things that come into my mind. Consider the frequency and the influence. How often do people buy houses? Statistics tell me every 5 to 7 years. How often do real estate agents sell houses? Every 5 to 7 days if they can, but they're thinking about it and focused on it full time. Who controls the transaction? I gave you the power of the intermediary story earlier of how the agent has significant influence. And why wouldn't they? They're getting a big chunk of money for the service they provide. A lot of clients are going to give them their due respect simply based on that. And again, real estate agents are referral business. The person who connected them with that real estate agent was probably a friend or family member. There's a level of trust and engagement with the agent that you probably don't have. So when we think about it, to get the best return for the least amount of work, because I'm both lazy and greedy, I think marketing to real estate agent provides the best return on investment. And you can choose to disagree, and you're welcome to. So having explained who we focus on, I'm going to go a step further and say that there's a whole lot of real estate agents out there. And I'm going to say that we focus on the most successful. And in a lot of businesses, there's an 80-20 rule that says 80% of the business gets done by the top 20% of the people. And I think that's very true in real estate. In fact, I think it might be more 90-10 in some cases. So we focus on the successful ones. And it's as simple as this. If I want to win 500 inspections a year to build my business, I could focus on 100 agents who do 5 deals a year, or I could focus on 5 agents who do 100 deals a year. You're not going to struggle too much to understand my preference on that one. Which one's easier? Obviously, 5 people is easier than 100. The other benefit of reaching out to top agents, in my mind, is that in a real estate office, there are typically the top dogs, and there are the up-and-comers, and then there are some kind of quiet background noise people who don't do much. The up-and-comers watch what the top dogs do, and they copy them. So if you can win a top agent and build a relationship with them, you get a drag-along effect from the agents in the office who want to be like them, be as successful as them. Okay, so, okay, Alan, even if I buy the fact that you should focus on top agents, where does the $1,000 come from? Well, let's walk through this a little bit. Let's assume that your inspection fee is $450. And if it's less, we need to have another conversation about that. but let's assume it's $450. And let's assume that agent might give you 25 inspections a year. That's a pretty good referral rate from an agent. They might do 100 deals a year, but you might get 25 inspections a year. And let's assume it's a 4-year relationship. Well, you might say, Alan, why is it not a forever relationship? And the answer is because relationships aren't forever. Eventually, there's going to be something that makes you drift apart. And I won't go into detail. It could be all kinds of things. But for the sake of our story, let's assume it's going to be a 4-year relationship. I'm also going to suggest to you that if you charge $450 for an inspection, you might have a profit of $100. Now, we don't want to play this game too much. We could spend all night arguing what profit is. But again, humor me and say that's in the ballpark, okay? So understanding that your fees and your profit might differ, let's look at it a little more closely. What is the life value of a relationship with that agent worth to you? Well, let me see. If they're going to give me 25 inspections a year for 4 years, that's 100 inspections, right? And if my inspection fee is $450, that's $45,000 in sales. But that's not what the agent is worth to me because I don't get to keep all that $45,000 in sales. I only get to keep the profit. So let's say if the profit's $100 on those 100 inspections, I get a $10,000 profit. Now, let me ask you where in the world you can invest $1,000 and make $10,000. Well, in the stock market, if you're clever, but not everybody buys Tesla at the right price. It's really hard to get a 10-to-1 return on investment. I think all of you would agree that's a really good return. So that's why spending $1,000 to win an agent might just make sense. Now, your next question might be, how on earth am I going to spend $1,000 on these folks? Well, I'm going to leave that to you, but I can say sometimes it starts with a lunch. Sometimes it starts with getting together and understanding what's important to them. So if you're going to call and say that you would be thrilled to have lunch with this agent, you might start off not by saying, we'll meet here. You might start off by saying, what's your favorite restaurant? Goes back to what I said at the beginning. It's not about you. It's about them and their wants and their needs. And so something as simple as asking them to choose the restaurant. And as soon as you ask that, they're going to pick a nice restaurant because you opened the door. And that is absolutely fine. You are making a difference. How many home inspectors in your market would do that? You've already caught their attention as being a little bit different. So that's one thing. You can then have a conversation with them, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then after that, you might provide a thank you that shows you really listened to them. You give them a thank you that reflects what they said they cared about and what they love and what they're passionate about. And you learned that during the lunch. And a lot of you will be thinking, as I always did, oh my gosh, if I ask an agent out to lunch, what if they say yes? What am I going to talk about? Well, let me help. Talk about absolutely nothing, especially not about you, especially not about home inspection, and especially not about your company. I think you should just be an asker of questions. I think you come to the meeting, and it might be a coffee shop, it might be a lunch, it might be a meeting in a park, it might be a meeting in a closing room at their office, doesn't really matter. But I think you want to come prepared with 5 questions, maybe a few more, and you want to be very quiet, except for asking them to tell their story. Again, it's everybody's favorite topic. How did you get into real estate? How did you get to be so successful? Did you have a coach? Did you have a mentor? How did you always work with this firm? Did you always work in this city? How did you get here? And a lot of successful agents now work with teams. When did you start your team? Did you join another team? Did you start your own? Tell me the story of how that happened. And so if you can get them talking, you can be through an hour lunch pretty darn quickly. Now, you can also have, depending on how things are going, a couple of bigger questions up your sleeve. And I might not ask this, quite frankly, on the first meeting, but at some point you want to bring the conversation around to home inspection. And again, not by telling them how great you are, not by telling them how much training you have, how many credentials you have, how you can also do swimming pools, wells, septic, mold, radon, everything else. They don't really care about that at this point. What's an interesting question is, what's the biggest problem you see with home inspection or with home inspectors, if you want to make it a little more personal? Let them tell you, and they'll tell you some bad experiences they've had, what they've heard, what they've seen, and you'll probably get a bit of an earful, and that's exactly what you want. And as you're listening to that, you should be able to latch on to something that they say and explain to them how you can solve that problem for them. And frankly, it might be as trivial as they never show up on time. More typically, it's they're never available when I need them. I reach out to them, I get a voicemail, or I get an answering machine, or I get some call center who doesn't know anything. And whatever it is, there'll be something in that conversation that you can latch on to. And again, I go back to, it's not about technical skills for the most part. They assume you have those, so don't brag about those. Talk about, in answering their questions, depending on what their frustrations are, you'll want to be talking about things like how accessible you are, how consistent you are, how friendly you are, what positive feedback you get, how you take care of their clients, you help them solve their problems and meet their needs. So probably one of the dominant ones is, we'll be there when you need us. We understand you don't need a home inspector every day or even every week, but when you need us quickly. So we make a point of being available, and we'll get into talking about things like online booking and so on as a solution to that. The other thing you may want to bring up in the conversation, and I'll leave it to you how you play this out and when you play it out, but I think it's very powerful to say that we understand that you have several relationships in your business because you have a very complex set of things that have to come together for a successful real estate transaction. And we understand that business is relationships, and we do not want to interfere with your relationships. So you're saying you don't want to take their business away from the home inspector you're using now, because in a way you're telling them that they've been stupid to work with the wrong home inspector. So I don't think you want to do that. I think you want to say, if your inspector is ever not available, we'd love to be your emergency backup solution. So you've created a problem for them. My home inspector is not available, and you're posing a solution. We'd love to be your emergency backup. You see how that works? Sometimes you might go a step further and say, you know what, I could sit here and tell you how wonderful we are, but that would just be like everybody else in the world. What we should probably do to give you a chance to evaluate whether we're the right person or company to be your emergency backup is to perform an inspection for you free of charge, so that you can evaluate, and that'll help you judge whether we're the right fit for your clients and for you. Based on the why should they take you at your word model. Now, a lot of you are probably choking as I'm saying this, and giving away inspections for free is giving away $450 or whatever it is. But if you have $1,000 budget, maybe that's okay. The other things that you might want to work into the conversation are, you understand it is their client, not your client, and that you always take very good care of their clients. And so there's a funny little phrase that we sometimes use saying, yeah, we understand that it's your client. We understand that you are loaning them to us for 2 or 3 hours, and our job is to take great care of them and return them back to you in good working order. So you can turn the phrase however you like, but somehow you have to let them know that they are the one who is important, and you are but a spoke in their wheel or a piece in their puzzle. Does your ego let you do that? I hope so. Here's my thinking about why it's not really our client. Although among ourselves, we think of them as our clients. But when you talk to a real estate agent, it's actually their client. And the financial reality is, depending on where you work in our market, typical real estate commission is 5%, and typically 2.5% go to the selling side and the buying side. And if they're double ending it, the one agent or the one company gets the whole 5%. So on the other side of the coin, at least in our market, given our house prices and our home inspection fees, the home inspector gets somewhere around 1/20th to 1/10th of 1%. So at the highest level difference, if they get 5% and I get 1/20th of 1%, they get 50 times as much money. You ever thought of real estate agents as being 50 times as valuable as you are? Me neither. I don't buy that for a second, but I can tell you that's the financial reality. And so why wouldn't they feel that it's their client? Why wouldn't they feel they're more important? Doesn't mean that they are. I'm talking about perspective. So I've been talking a lot about real estate agents, winning them and working with them. And some of you are going to be saying, so do you turn yourself inside out for a real estate agent? And the answer is absolutely not. People say, are you loyal to the real estate agent? Are you loyal to your client? Are you loyal to the seller? And my answer is none of the above. Our obligation is to be loyal to the house and to represent the house as we see it in our communications with our client on site and in our report. Because push comes to shove, that's the fire that your feet are going to be held to, is what did you say about the house? Not what did you say on site to the client, not what did you say over the phone to the agent, what did you say about the house? So we do two things. We avoid sugarcoating stuff, sweeping it under the carpet, and we avoid being alarmist and dramatic, especially overly dramatic. So we go right down the boring middle, and we play it and we tell it exactly as we see it. And let me tell you, there may be some agents out there who don't want you to do that, but I don't necessarily want to work with them. What I can tell you is that top agents are trying to build a business around happy clients. Remember I said real estate world is a referral business. They need their clients to be happy so their clients will refer them their future business. So an agent does not want an unhappy client. And we have lots of good agents. When we find something serious with the house, the agent may lose that sale, but they know they have dialed in more strongly their relationship with that client, because that client knows that the agent brought them a home inspector who was looking after them and their best interests, and the clients appreciate it. So the agents appreciate a home inspector who goes right down the middle, calls it as they see it, and is consistently, absolutely high quality and even-handed. Now, you're going to say, but I can think of some examples where that didn't happen. You absolutely can. I'm speaking in generalities, not absolutes. So can you find exceptions that prove the rule? For sure. But in the big picture, over 42 years, I can tell you that this makes sense. Okay. We talked about making people's lives easier. We talked about being accessible when people need you. And one of the easiest ways to do that, and if you're a Horizon user, you have the tool already available to you, online booking is a very powerful thing. The world is moving digital. There's no question about that. People are working on their phones. There's no question about that. If your website doesn't have a real live online booking feature, you are hurting your business. It makes you available 24/7, 365 days a year, and agents don't need you very often. Clients don't need you very often, but when they need they need to know you're available. So when the deal gets put together, Saturday night, multiple offer situation, it's now 12:30 Saturday night. They've been negotiating all evening. They finally get the house. but the client's got to fly back to Vancouver on Monday afternoon. Can they get an inspection set up Monday morning? With our online booking system that is really tied into your schedule, it's not one of those stupid fill out a form and we'll get back to you when we get a chance. This is actually tied into your schedule. So when the agent books or the client books an inspection, that's a legitimate time that is available and they're confirmed and they can take that to the bank. That is worth something. Because what happens if they call you and have to leave a message? Are they going to wait for you to call back? No, they're going to call the next person. This takes that off the table. Another way that you can be accessible is to say, and this is something when you're trying to win an agent that you can say if you have the nerve, and that is, we would be happy to be your technical expert. So if you have clients, whether or not we're doing a home inspection for them, I don't care. But if you have a client who has some technical questions about houses in general or a specific house, you can have them reach out to us. You can reach out to me. You can text me a photo with a question, and I'll tell you what I know about it. That accessibility, that being able to solve a problem, answer a question on the fly, and differentiate yourself from everybody else in doing it, I think is the magic. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit more about table stakes versus differentiation because it's something a lot of us struggle with. So tip number 3, table stakes I've already talked about. It's competency. It's being able to do a great job. We should all be able to do a great job. The presentable side is what we talked about, all those things. The differentiators are traditionally what were called USPs or unique selling propositions. Some people say competitive advantage. At Carson Dunlop, we've had the Carson Dunlop difference for, I don't know, 30, 35 years. And the goal here is to find your unique strengths. And I've talked about some marketing things that are a little bit outside the box already that you might leverage into strengths, but find everything you can. And it doesn't have to come from home inspection, by the way. You've all led your own unique life. You bring something to it that nobody else does. So for Carson Dunlop, there's a list of our credibility stuff. You don't much care about that. Isn't that a great example of how your clients don't care about your credibility? They only care how you're going to take care of them. You don't care about our credibility. And let me tell you, you shouldn't. And your clients don't. Credibility is not very important because it's all about you. It's not important to the client. It doesn't meet their needs. It doesn't solve their problems. It doesn't accomplish their goals. They already assume you're competent. What they want to know is what you will do for them on that day. Will you show up on time? Will you listen to my concerns? Will you give me great advice? Will you help me make the right decision about this largest commitment I'm ever going to make in my life? That's what they want to know. So other differentiators you can throw in. Here's a list of some of the other things that we do. And by the way, if you're a Horizon user, you can give your clients a free home reference book. It's just by flipping a switch in your report and it's done. It's about a $50 book. It's about 500 pages. More importantly, it has about 550 color illustrations. It's easy to read, it's geared to the homeowner, and it includes important things like life cycles and cost stuff, home maintenance tips, how to organize your stuff, what to do when you move in. Tons of great stuff in there. It's a on-the-shelf freebie for you. I like Recall Check, that recall notification system. We give it to our clients for free, and we pay attention and we survey our clients, and they do appreciate that little thing. It's not very expensive. We include it, and they get a recall notice not only at the time of the inspection, but for as long as they own their house. And also with Horizon, Horizon's got a unique relationship with Recall Check in that you don't have to write down model and serial numbers. You just take a photo of the data plate and put it in, press a button, and Recall Check will go and do all the heavy lifting and get back to the client with a separate report. So it's little to no effort for you with a very nice return in terms of client perceived value. Including ballpark repair costs. Now, I know most of my American colleagues stay well away from that. Some of my Canadian colleagues do, some don't. It's a differentiator in your market, potentially, offering ballpark repair costs. Insurance solutions, home and auto solutions. We can talk about that. I don't want to get into too much depth because I've got so much to touch on tonight. Preferred pricing on things that people need, junk, moving, handyman services, all that kind of obvious stuff. There's pros and cons to the added value stuff that you might throw in. Now, on the upside, it helps you compete and helps you differentiate from the others. And sometimes it can help you overcome price objections. You're more expensive than the guy I talked to on the phone 5 minutes ago. Yeah, but we do this, this, and this, or we include that. So that can be useful. On the other side of the coin, what problem is the client trying to solve? They do not want to make a mistake buying this house. So the extras are really not what they're focused on. That's kind of the icing on the cake, but they need the cake first. So their focus might not be on any of the extras. They might not even hear anything you say because they're just trying to make sure that they're going to find a home inspector who's going to pay attention, take care of them, and make sure they don't make a big mistake. Another differentiator is pre-listing inspections. Again, we could spend, as a matter of fact, I think we should have a webinar just devoted to pre-listing inspections. So we'll maybe do that next time. And by the way, are pre-listing inspections important? I think they are. Right now, about 40% of our inspections are done for sellers. At some points over the last couple of years, it's been as high as 75%, depending on where the market is. It's a big part of our business, and happy to talk to you about the how and the why with pre-listing inspections. Again, we use it as a differentiator. Tip number 4, let's talk about risk reversal. When you're pounding your chest, telling your clients how great you are, or your prospective clients how great you are, why should they believe you? Why should they believe your website? Everybody's website says they're the best, the most efficient, the most highly trained, this, that, and the other. What you probably want to do is take the risk away from them and put it on yourself. And in an absolute kind of way, a money back guarantee, a double your money back guarantee. I'm laughing because it was a lot of years ago that I sat down with a guy who's become a very prominent coach in the home inspection profession and talked to him about this. And he and some associations have turned this into a brand standard for themselves that comes complete with the logo and everything else. So is it sensible? Is it useful? Absolutely. We do it a little bit differently. We don't put it out on our website. If we have a price objection situation, or if people are unsure and they're trying to decide, we might say something like, I understand, everybody tells you they're great, you have no idea who to choose. Let me suggest this to you. We'll book the inspection for 9 a.m. Wednesday. We'll go through the inspection, and if at the end of it, you don't think we're worth the money, you pay us exactly what you think is fair. And if that number is 0, we will live with that. We are very confident that we are going to take great care of you and give you outstanding value. So that's a conversational way to hand it in a phone call. Plastering stuff on your website may or may not be effective, depends on the audience. Home warranty is another way to accomplish that. And there are other warranties that you can do. A quick word on warranties, and I've been through a bunch of them over the years, believe me. Don't offer a warranty unless it's meaningful, unless you would buy the warranty. Don't offer a warranty that's going to frustrate your clients. That's going to hurt your business, not help it. If the warranty company denies the claim, it hurts you, doesn't help you. The last one on the list is the we'll buy your house back option. I'm not going to get into that one. I'm just going to leave that alone. I just wanted to recognize that it's out there. Okay, tip number 5. I would love for you to exceed expectations and do just a little bit more than what you promised you would do. It's so simple, and yet nobody does it. And it could be almost anything. Here's a bold one. We promise we won't keep you waiting. If we're late for the inspection, there is no fee. Are you willing to do that? You don't have to go quite that far, but find something that sets you above. There's the trinkets and trash approach that frankly is doing something more than they expected. Most people have to measure stuff for appliances and furniture and so on. A lot of home inspectors I know give people a measuring tape with their company logo on it. Not a bad idea because the measuring tape is practical, it's durable, it hangs around for a long time, and it's also kind of related to the home and the home inspection. You can see some other ones on the list there. I won't go through them. Lots of little things you can do. The one I highlighted at the bottom, I kind of like because it's personal and it's real and it's related to home inspection. If during the inspection, they talk to you about things that they're concerned about, and I hope it's conversational during an inspection. Oh, tiny sidebar for 10 seconds. I have a lot of my respected colleagues in the states that I love and I've worked with for a long time, but they are starting to tell clients not to come to the last 30 minutes of the inspection. I get it. I understand. I just happen to disagree. I want the client there with me from the beginning to the end. I know they won't be focused for the whole time, but I want to build a relationship. I want to build a referral base for my business. I want to reduce the chance of me getting sued because, quite frankly, friends don't sue friends. And so getting to know the client through the inspection to me is a privilege and part of the service. So it should be easy for you to take 10 minutes after and send them an email with a link to something that they care about. If they ask you about alarm services, for example, well, we don't inspect alarm systems, but after you can say, I know you're interested in alarm services. Here's a link to a site that ranks the alarm services in our area. I really like sending people information that's generic and not specifically promotional. So associations, review sites, things like that. It might be somebody like HomeStar if you're looking for a contractor. Find one of the lead generation companies, Home Advisor, Angie's List, there's Porch, there's a whole bunch of them. So give people some value that is personalized and related to the inspection and shows them that you listened to what they told you, understood it, and acted on it. That to me is far more powerful than a tape measure. Again, I absolutely invite you to disagree with absolutely everything I say tonight. I'm throwing it out there. I understand some of this stuff is completely off the charts in terms of being what's normal. I don't care. I'm telling you anyway. Tip number 6, the 3 A's. I have to tell you a little story. There is a high-profile doctor in our community that I got to know a little bit, and he's always on TV. Whenever there's an issue, he's the guy who's on there for 30 seconds giving the doctor's side of whatever the issue is. And I said, how did you get to do that? How did you get to be the guy? And he said, the 3 A's, it's simple. I said, what are you talking about? He said, available, affable, and able. Sorry, available, affable, and able. He said, and it's important that it's in that order. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the media doesn't need me much, but when they need me right now. So I am always available. I have a cell phone with me. They have the number. I have a studio that they can interview me in, set up at my office and at my house and at my cottage. And so when they call, I'm ready to go. Secondly, you have to be easy to work with. You have to be thrilled that they called, even if they interrupted something really important. You can't let them know that they interrupted you and you're irritated about it. If you are irritated to be contacted, you don't qualify as the guy they always call. Oh yeah, he's available, but he's always miserable about it. And he's hard to work with, and he's cantankerous, and he gives our technical people a rough time. So you need to be easy to work with. And then he said at the end, then of course you need to be able to do the job. Remember we talked about table stakes before? That's what he's saying. So he's saying the magic for him in winning that was the outreach being available, being affable, and then of course being able. Interesting story that was what got him a ton of notoriety. Okay, tip number 7, surveys. This is a bit of a mixed message, but I'm not going to apologize for that. First of all, I really love surveys because I want to know what my clients thought, good or bad. Secondly, my problem is sometimes I think we're killing it and we're doing great, but when I look around and I take stock and I measure, I find out that I'm not. And what I mean by that is I am thrilled when our business is up 15%. And then I know everything is working. We're a well-oiled machine. Life is good. until I find out that the real estate market is up 30% and I'm actually losing market share. So I'm doing better than I was, but everybody else is doing more better. I don't think more better is good English, but you get the point. Okay, so why might your business only be up 15%? Well, gosh, I'm up 15%. I'm busy. I have to turn down work. Wait a minute, I have to turn down work. So agents and clients love working with you, except when they can't get you, it doesn't help them. And guess what? They have to reach out to somebody else, and they find somebody else they like almost as much as you, but they're always available. And you're slow to respond to your voicemails. They've got to go somewhere else. And that is expensive to you. So paying attention to what's going on, if you're doing it by intuition, gut instinct, experience, a feel for it, or even your sales numbers, I think you're missing out. Looking at the real estate sales numbers, we track every month how our volume compares with the total real estate sales so that we have a bit of a yardstick to know what's going on. Easy and simple to do. Most real estate boards publish their sales numbers every month. So when I talk about measuring things and finding out whether you're killing it in terms of customer satisfaction, I don't think you should ask somebody. I think you should ask everybody all the time, every client, every agent, every inspection. I think it was a couple of sessions ago, we did a piece on Listen 360. It's a net promoter score survey kind of thing. If you're a Verizon user, it's available at a tiny fraction of what it would cost in the retail market. I think it's about $250 a year, less than about half of one inspection fee. So watch the webinar. Our old webinars are here. I don't want to go into it tonight, except to tell you it's a powerful survey tool. I will tell you that surveys matter and reviews matter. And I think especially Google reviews. I won't say Yelp reviews help you because I hate Yelp with a passion, which is a whole different discussion. But Google reviews are powerful because when people Google you, on the right side of that results page, often stuff about your company comes up, including your Google reviews. So Listen 360 is terrific because it surveys our clients, but it also asks the clients who give us a positive review to share it on Google. So that is kind of cool. Tip number 8, additional services. So there's a concept in business, and we'll talk about it shortly. And the concept is selling more things, more services to existing clients is a great way to grow your business and grow your revenue. So you can see a list of things here. I don't need to go through them, except I'm going to stop on thermal imaging. And I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I know a lot of home inspectors are just throwing it in. I really wish you would not do that. It is too valuable. It is too different. It is, as soon as you throw it in with a home inspection, it becomes virtually worthless in the mind of your clients and in your agents. If it's not worth charging for, it can't possibly add a lot of value. That's how people think. I wish you would charge for it. I'll leave it at that. We charge $200, $195, I think, as an extra on-site. A separate visit to do just thermal, altogether different. But as an add-on to an inspection, absolutely. What makes sense about additional services is that they can solve a problem. Very often for a client or for an agent, the convenience of one-stop shopping can really be convenient for an agent. And for those of you who deal with rural properties where well and septic is the thing, if they don't have to make separate phone calls to find the people to deal with those issues, it's a plus for them and for you. You've solved a problem for them. That's a significant win. And then, of course, you get more revenue is the other side for you. Tip number 9, answering the phone. I know I sound so old school with this, but I think it really matters. So the worst thing is nobody answers the phone. The next worst thing is it's a machine. The next worst thing is it's a service. And the next worst thing after that is you answering the phone, but you're out on an inspection. You're in a crawl space, you're on a roof, you're with a client, you're with an agent. All of that is terrible. Better if you have someone who answers the phone, but I'm also going to say if it's a spouse or a partner and they don't really think of it as their full-time job, they're doing you a favor. but they're in the car, they're at the store, they're with the kids, they're not really focused, they're not professional, I'm not sure that's helping your business. Come on, machine, change slides for me. There we go. So we think it matters. We think it's really important because first impressions are so strong. People do judge books by their covers. These people are impatient and they're stressed and they don't know much about how home inspection works, but they know they need one and they need one now. And the first impression thing is kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the coffee stain story, but it's the coffee stain story is all about flying on a commercial airline, which I haven't done for a while. But when you get on a plane, you can't really tell whether that is a really good quality plane, whether it's been well maintained, whether all the service checks have been done, whether the pilot is super experienced and sober. You don't know any of that stuff. But what you can do is when you flip down that tray table in front of you and you look down at it and there's a coffee stain on it from the last person who sat in that seat, you've immediately got an impression of the airline, the organization, the plane, the people, the flight attendants, the booking agents. It ruins the whole experience because I don't even want to touch this tray table because it's disgusting and somebody else was obviously just here and made a mess and nobody even cared to clean it up. And that's enough to cost you a relationship. So first impressions are so strong. Answering the phone is really key, and answering it well is super important. So if you're thinking about marketing and building your business, marketing makes the phone ring, but sales picks it up. And this is where the sales becomes critical. Having somebody really good answer the phone. I'm a big believer in scripts. And everybody says, oh, I don't need a script. I'm terrific on the phone. I'm a natural. Well, God love you. There are some who are, but most of us, including myself, are not. We need scripts. We need coaching. We need practice. We need to understand how to answer the really challenging questions, including the price objection questions. Most of us are not as good at it as we think we are. Okay, tip number 10. I'm going to talk about 3 different ways you might consider growing. I'm going to talk about finding more clients, selling more services to existing clients. We talked about that one a little bit, or getting more money for inspection. Okay, let's start with finding new clients or customers. And that's what most of us do. And that's what most businesses do. You're out there looking, you're hunting for the next home buyer, the next agent who will bring you an inspection. So, and it's one inspection at a time. And quite frankly, if you looked at our scheduling system and you didn't understand the home inspection business, you'd say, oh my gosh, these guys look like they're going out of business. If you look 2 weeks out in their calendar, they don't have any business booked. Well, that's the way home inspection works. So one client at a time is the way most of us do it, or one agent at a time. And you know what? It works, but it's heavy sledding. It's a lot of work, a lot of relationship building, a lot of referrals, a lot of marketing, and a lot of sales. Once you find a customer, offering additional things to them that meet other needs they have. What did I say marketing wasn't? Tricking somebody into buying something they did not want or need. It's not about that. It's about solving a problem. Offering a termite inspection in a part of town where there are no termites is not a value-added service. Talking to people as you go through the inspection, and we find this a lot, people are generally concerned about mold, asbestos, indoor air quality. And I might say more so people with children, but I'm not even sure that's true anymore. People are concerned about that. They don't necessarily connect that to home inspection in their mind. And in a sense, we're building scientists, not health scientists. So that's perfectly logical that they don't expect you to solve that problem for them. But if you can, and if you do, and especially ramming it down their throat before they're ready may not be the right thing to do. But as you develop that relationship and hear them go through the house and talk about their concern, and if they start to ask you about environmental issues, You can say, hey, I'm the building scientist, but we work with a health scientist who can solve those problems for you. So we don't do most of these services ourselves. We rely on partners, specialists that do it for a living, because we say being a home inspector and doing an evaluation of the building science side of things is more than a full-time job for us. We leave the stuff outside of our scope to the specialist, and I think that's a powerful way to put it. And I know a lot of you do mold and make a lot of money doing mold. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Good for you. If you can do it and add value, that's great. And there are other things on this list that a lot of home inspectors do. Good for you if you do it in-house. For the newer people, if you can't do it in-house, you're not comfortable, you don't know, build a relationship with somebody who can provide that service for your clients. Because as Richard Branson said, a business is an idea to help make people's lives better. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to help solve problems for them first. You can decide whether you're going to charge a referral fee or an admin fee for it. I don't really care. I way more care that you're going to take care of your client's needs. Okay, the third way to grow your business is to get more money for every inspection and raise your prices. And I'm treading on really thin ice now, I get it. So very quickly, I think, Brian, are we going to be able to do a poll on this one?
I mean, I could set it up for the end of the presentation if you'd like. That's a little spur of the moment, but I'd be glad to set it up for the end. So yes, but.
Okay, if you can do it now, let's do it now. So I just want you to tell.
Give me a minute, because that was not part of the planned ones.
Okay, so I tricked you.
You tricked me. How about you continue to talk and I'll set up the poll? I'll be very quick. That's a game at this point. So
I'll carry on. So you guys see the poll pop up. I think you might have 4 or 5 things to choose from, and here's the little crib sheet for you. So when did you last raise your prices? I'm just looking for a ballpark to get a sense among the community of how often you folks raise your prices. Okay, so Brian is setting that up, and you see it pop up, and then Brian will yell in my ear what the answer is. I don't get to see the polls, by the way, so you guys can do it, and it's all anonymous, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, just give me one more second here, sir. What was the actual? You switched to the bonus tips. What were the values you wanted, sir? I didn't see the ranges that you'd like. A couple more slides ahead, and then just continue talking as I fill that out.
What, this one here?
You got to just stay there. Just keep on chatting away.
Okay,
you're wet. Take it in.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, you know what? We rehearsed this, but we didn't rehearse this part, obviously. So, yeah, so.
I appreciate the unexpectedness. I'm sure everyone's having a bit of a laugh.
Okay. How much more time do you need for me to talk about this?
About 15 seconds.
All right, good stuff. So if you haven't raised your prices in 2 years, just put down longer and we'll leave it at that. And if you've raised your prices this month, hey, good for you. Hats off to you. Okay, Brian, I can't wait any longer. You got this thing ready?
All right. I'm initializing the poll now. Twist my arm as much as you can. All right.
Okay. So you're going to yell at me at the end because I took too long to do the presentation, and here I am moving the poll around. And
part of my language.
Okay, looks like the poll is open.
It's going.
Okay. And we should only give people like 10 or 20 seconds to do this, right? Because there's not a lot of thinking, and they've been looking at the slide now for an hour and a half. So
all right, we are good. We can close that poll, and let's share the results here. So, although you can't see them, Alan, this month 6%, last 6 months 28%, last 12 months 28%. So we've got basically a middle ground between 6 and 12 months. Over 12 months, or 24, pardon me, is 13, and 26 is longer. So the median is 12 or 6 to 12.
Okay, better than I thought. So
thanks for
almost half of you have been quite a while. The other half have been fairly quick.
Yes, advance the slide, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. Thank you.
What's that?
No, you're good to go now.
Okay, I'm on my way. All right, thanks, Brian, and my apologies. Sorry about that. Okay, I said in the title that we're going to talk about 10 things, but I want to throw in a couple others just very quickly. So continuing education for real estate agents, depending on what market you're in, this can be really good stuff. And you can also sometimes charge for it and build relationships with agents. So that's great. Doing office presentations is a pretty standard home inspector thing to do, but I'm going to throw some things at you. Don't do them if you're going to talk about yourself and how great you are. Do them if they add real value for your audience, if you solve a problem, meet a need for them. Don't do them if you're not comfortable speaking in front of a group, because you've got to be likable and entertaining, or you're going to hurt your business, not help it. And lastly, don't do them if you can only do one and never be invited back. You've got to be a regular to have an impact. And even then, here's another caveat. I'm going to tell you, for office presentations, in a lot of real estate companies and a lot of real estate offices, the top agents don't come to office meetings. They're out building their business. They're not sitting in office meetings. So you may be missing exactly the audience that you are trying to reach. Okay. So the pros and cons of office meetings. Now, here's another one. If it's available to you in your market, I do think it's a really good idea to join a board of realtors. Very often, home inspectors can join as affiliates and then get involved. And volunteering is a great way to get your name out there, to get known. And if you can become recognized as somebody who is accessible, affable, and able, the 3 A's again, then you can make a pretty good dent in the world. So that is another tool that we weren't going to talk about. I threw it in at the last minute. Brian probably wasn't even aware of that one. But let's go on to talk about pricing for a little bit. Where am I? I've got about 15 minutes left before I'd better shut up. Let's see, my rant. We do not charge enough money because we provide incredible value, way more value than, quite frankly, most of the other services provided in the real estate transaction. We are our own worst enemy. We compete against ourselves. We drive prices down. It is so frustrating. I'm going to leave it at that because that could be the topic of a whole discussion. Okay, here's my problem with pricing and home inspectors in general. And I've seen this happen a bunch. Luckily, it's not happening in my market too much anymore. But if there's 3 decent inspectors in an area, all basically the same qualifications, been around, know what they're doing, provide a great service, they all charge roughly the same fee, but times are tough. Economy is tough, market's down, whatever. So you decide to drop your fees $25 to get more business. And the magical thing is, it might just work. And then your competitor across the street notices that you dropped your price $25. So he drops his $50. So he's $25 less than you. And then the third competitor notices it and he's going, well, heck, I got to play this game too. So he drops his and wants to get below. So you can see how this is a slippery slope to nowhere. This is just a race to the bottom. So it's a foolish thing to do, to compete on price and to drop your prices. And you're going to tell me, but every business does it. I'm going, I don't care. It's stupid. Don't do it. Why do people do it? Because it's easy. It doesn't require any brain power, any intelligence, any thought, or any work. Changing your price is easy. It happens to be suicidal, but it's really easy. And that's why people do it. Okay. Competing on price is not a differentiator. It's not a unique selling proposition. Any fool can do it, and most of the fools do. Don't be one of the fools. Okay. Here's the other flaw in the logic. If you lower your price, you're going to get more clients. And if you raise your price, you're going to get fewer clients. There's an assumption built into those two statements, and that assumes that prices are elastic. And guess what? In home inspection, prices are inelastic. And what that means is you change your price and it doesn't change the demand very much. Okay? It doesn't shrink and expand in a direct relationship to your fees. Part of the problem is when you raise your prices, nobody notices. And I know that after 42 years because people don't notice. because clients don't use you but every 5 to 7 years. They have no idea what a home inspection fee should be, but we think everybody's looking over our shoulder comparing with a really sharp pencil. They don't really know our prices. Real estate agents, for the most part, don't know our prices. Here's something I wish you would never do. If you're going to change your prices, please don't announce them. Just change them quietly. You worry that they're going to call your competition. Well, first of all, if you're working with agents who use you all the time and refer you, they're not shopping around. If you have a client who's referred to you because their sister or brother said they should use you, they're not going to shop around. And then secondly, if people are shopping, you can tell right away. And then there's a whole set of strategies you can use, and we won't get to them tonight. But you don't want to be the cheapest guy in town, because the cheapest guy in town is by definition the weakest link in the chain. And you need to tell your client that we provide outstanding value and we're not interested in being the least expensive firm in town, because we are not the least valuable. In fact, we're the most valuable. And then explain your value proposition, your differentiator to them. Okay, let's go through a little simple example here. And I'll go through pretty quickly once I finish my water. So let's pretend you do 250 inspections a year at $400 an inspection, so you gross $100,000 a year. I've given you a list of expenses there, most of which are fixed, some of which are variable. The salary thing I put in is fixed, although most of you probably don't pay yourself a salary, and you probably don't pay yourself enough if you do. But let's say your expenses add up to $79,000, and so you make a profit of $21,000. So if you're the inspector, you took a salary of $55,000, excuse me, and a profit of $21,000. Good for you. That's not bad. That's a 21% margin on your business. That's pretty respectable. So I'm going to tell you that changing prices doesn't change demand very much. I've already said that, but you're not going to believe me. So we'll just look at the numbers both ways, because otherwise I'm just wasting my time. So let's say we saw that $21,000 profit on $100,000 sales. 21% is great. Let's look at four things. Let's lower our price and assume the volume goes up, because that's what you think is going to happen. Let's look at lowering your price and the volume stays the same, which I'm telling you is what I think is going to happen. Then we'll look at raising the price and assume that volume goes down, because that's what you're pretty sure will happen. And then let's look at raising the price and the volume stays the same, which I know is going to happen. Okay, so here's the fun. So let's lower our price and pretend sales are going to go up. So we start at 250 inspections a year at $400. We drop our price 10%. We're down to $360. And let's say sales go up 10%. Good for us. So we go from 250 to 275. Here's the magic. So now 275 inspections, great, more inspections, but at a lower fee. So our sales are $99,000. So wait a minute, we did 25 more inspections, but our sales actually went down $1,000. Ouch. What's worse is we did 10% more work. We did 25 more inspections, and I've written in here 4 hours per inspection. Most of you will tell me that travel, report writing, booking, and writing reports, all that stuff around doing an inspection is more than 4 hours. Even if it's only 4 hours, those additional 25 inspections took you 100 hours. That's 2.5 working weeks, folks. So your variable expenses went up a little bit because you did more travel, you burned more gas in your car, and so on. So your actual expenses went up from $79,000 to $80,000. Your liabilities are up 10% because you've got 10 more exposures out there of inspections you've done. You've got 2.5 weeks less in your life every year, and you make less money. So instead of making $21,000 profit, you make $19,000 profit, but it took you 2.5 weeks more to do it, and your neck is out there by another 25 inspections. So prices went down, sales went up, but we worked more and made less money. Great, great model. Here's what I think is really going to happen. I think when you drop your prices from 400 to 360, I think your sales are going to stay the same. In which case, your revenue goes from $100,000 to $90,000 because you changed your fee, you reduced your fee, and the sales stayed the same. So your expenses stayed the same. You didn't do any more inspections. You didn't waste the 2.5 weeks. That's the good news. But the bad news is your profit goes from $21,000 down to $11,000 because your sales went from 100,000 to 90. So your profit drops by 48%. So let me see, I dropped my price by 10%, but I lost half my profit. Wow. That's sobering. Okay. In a nutshell, please never lower your prices. We did it once, never again. Now, let's look at raising your prices. And I know you're going to tell me as soon as you raise your prices, you're going to lose business. And I'll go, okay, let's pretend you're right, because you might be. Okay, so you're going to raise your prices and your sales are going to go down. Watch this. 250 inspections, $400 a year. I'm going to raise my prices by $40 to $440. Okay. And my sales are going to fall 10% from 250 inspections to 225. So my sales went from 100,000 to 99,000. Sales went down by $1,000. But I didn't have to drive so far. I didn't have as much expense, so my expenses went down a little bit. So sales are down by 1,000, but expenses are down by 1,000. I still have $21,000 profit. Wait a minute. I raised my prices and still made the same amount of money. How cool is that? Okay, so wait a minute. I raised my prices, but the number of inspections I did also went down. So I worked 2.5 weeks less that year and made the same money. I got paid vacation, 100% full pay, 2.5 weeks for doing nothing except raising my prices. What a way to win. How cool is that? Okay, better still, I'm going to tell you that I don't believe sales will drop. Why don't I believe sales will drop when you raise your prices? Because our original price when we started our company was $150. Our average fee now is about $650. Do you think we've ever raised our prices? Yeah, a lot. And so I'm here to tell you that when you raise your prices, nobody notices and your sales won't go down. And I'm talking about you in the home inspection business. I'm not talking about being in the jewelry business or the car business. I'm talking about the home inspection business. So raise your prices 10% from $400 to $440, do the same number of inspections, and your sales go up to $110,000 from $100,000. Your expenses stay the same because you're doing the same number of inspections. Your profit goes from 21 to 31,000. So a 10% price increases gives you 48% more profit. Raise your price 10% and make 50% more profit. How cool is that? Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't suggest you raise your prices 10%. What do I suggest? I'm going to say raise your prices twice a year by relatively small amounts and raise them by odd amounts. So I'm going to tell you, we change our prices by about 1.5% twice a year. And 1.5% is easy because if somebody notices that you raise your price, you say, yeah, we raised our prices by about 1.5%. We're just trying to keep up with inflation. Oh, okay, I get it. Here's the other sidebar. Don't make your price memorable. Don't make your price $3.99 for goodness sake. First of all, it locks you into you can never raise your price. What's your next price going to be after $3.99? $4.06, $4.11, $4.19? I don't know. But I'll tell you, there's a big psychological difference between a number that starts with 3 and a number that starts with 4. I would rather you not be stuck at the $3.95 or $4.95 mark. Our fees start at, I don't know, something like $546 or so. I can't even tell you what they are. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But they should be odd numbers. They shouldn't be memorable. And I mean, we live in this beautiful place where there's sales tax. So nobody can possibly figure out what your fee is anyway, because by the time you add sales tax, it's so confusing, nobody knows. That is a great place for me to stop for tonight. I'm just coming up on 9:30. I said I would be 90 minutes. We're about there. I did want to say that next month, Brian's got it set up for November 18th. I think we're going to talk about pre-listing inspections. I'd love to do that. If somebody gives me a way better topic that's way more urgent and rush, we might swap it. I reserve the right to change it out. but I think that one might be fun. Brian, first of all, my apologies for messing you up on the poll. That was not a fair thing to do, and I did not mean to do that, so I'm sorry.
Well, how about I reverse it? And speaking of polls, folks, what would you like to hear Alan share his insights on next month? You can't see it, Alan.
Oh, you
You're
rascal.
locked. You are locked in mystery.
Okay, you can just write down listing inspections. That would be simple, right? And then you
could be marketing, could be any number of things. We'll see. Dun, dun, dun. 30 seconds. We got 10 more seconds to go, Alan, before people have let us know what their consensus is. I think you skewed the vote with your last few comments, but we shall see. We shall see.
You were a tricky guy.
All right. So let us see. Survey says, you know what? It's always best to go with your hunches, your instincts, your gut. And Alan, it's pre-listing inspections. I think you have set the plate for everyone as far as what they want to learn. So next month you have a heavy burden to live up to, so to speak.
Okay, well, I'm good with that. By the way, that reminds me, that is the last one in theory. So the last thought you heard is the prevailing thought. And by the way, we did this in an early webinar, Ryan. I'm going back, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 webinars maybe. But we have a document that you're welcome to use that's the reverse of marketing. It's called When Things Go Wrong. And you can add it to your reports. And what it is it talks about when a client finds that there's something in their house that isn't working great, isn't doing what they thought, and they think their home inspector let them down. If you can include in your report somewhere, maybe it's an appendix somewhere buried in somewhere's a link, when things go wrong, it can be very powerful because it talks about all the things that might happen. Like the contractor comes in and says, oh, here, you should do this. The home inspector should have told you about that. In that, we talk about that's going to happen to you. So the fact that you can point them to a document that said, yeah, we told you this would happen and here's what you should do about it, because people believe the last one in theory. So if you have people come to your house to do an inspection and then a contractor comes and then a different contractor comes, it's whoever you saw most recently who is the most powerful and the most credible and the most believable. The home inspector gets lost in the shuffle and we get thrown under the bus all the time. When things go wrong is a powerful defense mechanism for that. So you might want to do that. And Brian just made me think of it by me influencing the poll by saying, here's what I'm planning on talking about next week. So you're welcome to do that. Please pester Brian if you want to get access to it. It's posted somewhere. I can't remember where it is, but so there you go. That's me throwing it back at you, Brian.
All right, I appreciate that, Alan. All right, before anyone turns off, we'll have some Q&A. And to Alan's point, anything we've talked about this evening, such as the replay of the actual webinar, to Alan's point, the little appendix item that you can add in, we will make sure to include this in our follow-up email. That is going to be sent out Friday afternoon. So give us a little bit of a lull. Friday afternoon, it's going to be sent out and on our YouTube channel. Now, as far as questions are concerned, we do have a wealth of them, and we're going to do our best to address as many as we can. So stay tuned, and we're going to begin with Daryl. He has a combo question. Now, Alan, I know you're not able to take advantage of this right yet, but what's your preferred drink?
It depends on my mood.
Well, we're talking tonight.
Take a glass of wine, glass of scotch.
My man. All right. He is a Jack and Coke guy. And he wanted to mention that he raises prices on October 1st. So he hears your sentiment, loves it.
Good for you. Good for you. Well done.
Daniel would like to ask here, is it common for the selling agent to pay for the inspection? No, I guess a segue to next month, maybe.
Absolutely. The answer is rarely on a buyer's inspection, in my experience and in my market, but very common on a seller's inspection. In a seller's inspection, the agent often bundles their services to win the listing, and that might include things like the typical marketing, staging, home inspection, and so on. Maybe title insurance even, maybe appraisal even. But home inspection is a very common thing for agents to include in a set of bundled services for a seller in a pre-listing situation.
Awesome. And I mean, talk about setting the plate there, Alan. Another question here from Leighton. I've seen reports from inspectors who get referrals from agents, but they don't really necessarily do as thorough as an inspection because they're getting their commission from the agent. What do you think?
Great question. When I hear the words getting commission from an agent, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I do not like that. And by the way, I've got way more hair than I usually do because it's either the COVID excuse for not getting a haircut or it's me trying to turn into Neil Young. I'm not sure which, but
He's trying to brag.
yeah,
I don't have any hair.
I do not like the concept of being paid for business or paying for business either way. So I think that perceived conflict of interest puts you offside with a lot of associations, some state regulatory bodies, and quite frankly, perhaps more importantly, with thinking customers. So yeah, paying referral fees to agents for business, I have trouble with. I also have trouble with paying to be in realtors' marketing materials. I also have trouble paying to get into realtors' offices to do presentations. I guess I'm old school. I don't know. I'm also maybe privileged enough and blessed enough in this business not to have to do that to try and get my foot in the door. But even when we were starting, and it was really common to ask you to pay for being a list of suppliers on real estate marketing materials, and we always said no. We happen to be a consulting engineering firm, which kind of makes it a little easier for us to say no, not that we market that particularly heavily, but it goes against my grain. Some of you may have great experience with it and some great marketing stories, and I know some of my colleagues do. I choose not to go there. It doesn't feel right to me.
Thank you, Alan, for your candidness. Now, with regard to sort of promotions and things, what are your thoughts on offering, and pardon me, this is by Wayne, what are your thoughts on offering a one-time promotion to a customer where they get maybe a small referral fee for word of mouth? So like a discount or referral, maybe an agent gets the referral. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's giving a client something for referring you to a friend or family member is pretty common. I don't mind it. Listen 360 actually makes it fairly easy to do that if you choose to. And it can be something like a Starbucks card or something like that. And I have a colleague in Florida who for years, and as far as I know, he's still doing it, he would give people either movie tickets or a car wash coupon for a referral. And he grew his business quite nicely. And I think that was a help along the way. So yeah, thanking clients for referrals after you've done a terrific inspection for them. Yeah, I think that's probably, in all candor, we don't do it, but I kind of get it. And I have seen it work for people.
Thank you, Alan. Chad wants to know, what's your opinion on using sites like Home Advisor, HomeStars? I think you mentioned Yelp there to some dissent. So maybe good, bad, and indifferent. What's your experience? And I think you also talked about maybe Listen 360. So got a second to talk about that as well in conjunction?
Well, yeah, there's really two different topics in there. And he was asking about, Home Advisors, HomeStars. I would put Porch in there, Angie's List, and so on. So those are lead generation or contractor referral organizations. So using them, it depends. I don't understand the question quite well enough. Referring your clients to those as sources of home improvement or home maintenance and repair suppliers, I'm perfectly comfortable with. That makes sense to me.
I think I'm more on the promotion side, so marketing yourself, so pay-per-click and things of that avenue. Have you had any success with going to maybe HomeStars? I think it's more Canadian versus Home Advisor and things of that realm, and promoting yourself and getting any ROI, return on investment on using those for avenues.
Sorry, okay, that's probably what Chad was getting at. I haven't done it. I don't know. We are present. HomeStars is owned by Home Advisor, by the way, so it's all part of the same family. We are present there. We market in a defensive kind of way, which I'm not wild about. Promoting yourself there, I'm going to say I don't have any statistics to back up this opinion, but I'll give it to you anyway. My suspicion is people looking to buy a home probably are not thinking about those kinds of sites to find a home inspector. They're thinking about them for repairs and maintenance and maybe home improvement. So there's a connection and it's logical. My guess is it's not the client's first thought. My first thought might be that they would sit down at their computer and type into the Google machine, home inspections Indianapolis or whatever town they're in. So it's a maybe, but it's not, my guess is it's probably not the best place to spend your only 100 marketing dollars available. I'm going to leave it at that because I really don't know what I'm talking about.
No, Alan, you're the best. Thank you for that. I'm sure Chad appreciated it. And it's unfortunate the gentleman just left because I had to put you on hold and ask that question so I could learn how to pronounce the name. But Procopius had asked, Alan, can you elaborate on we'll buy your host house? Oh, I can't even pronounce myself now. House back. It sounds super gimmicky. Would Carson Dunlop ever offer that?
Nope.
All right, full stop. I appreciate that. Sometimes better short and sweet. Let's continue along. Robert has the question here. What is the average price for a basic single home inspection? And any input generally on what you find that is?
Yeah, and I can't remember what the last actually survey number was. I want to say somewhere around $400. Now, it's a bit of an unfair question because it depends where you are in North America, what the average house price is, what your market is. In the big city centers where cost of living is higher, house prices are higher, inspection fees tend to be higher. In smaller centers and in rural centers, inspection prices tend to be lower. So an average price is a bit misleading probably, but I want to say high 300s is what I remember as a national average. I could be wrong on that, but it's probably more important for you if you're getting set up to know your competition well and to do some secret shopping anyway, and to get a very clear picture of what the prices are in your market. And you can choose, don't be a prisoner to what they are. You can choose to differentiate yourself by price. And we do that to some extent. Actually, in our market, we almost do it to our detriment in the sense that a lot of people price themselves to be less than Carson Dunlop. So when our prices change, we see other people changing kind of in lockstep with us, but they always want to be below us. So you can set your price higher as a way of differentiating yourself. My iPhone, Apple does a masterful job of intentionally being more expensive. And they say, because we've added more value, we're better quality. And that's been the Apple story from the get-go, whether it's a computer or a phone or AirPods, whatever it is, their differentiator is in part on price. They don't care what Android charges. They didn't care what BlackBerry charged. They were more expensive. And that can be a market position.
Awesome, Alan. Thank you. Hey, Richard, he's just saying, wanted to mention he's been with Carson Dunlop since 1987. So shout out to probably one of our longest standing members of Carson Dunlop. Glad to see you in the Horizon community and Carson Dunlop community, and another OG in the audience. So thank you, sir, for coming in. All right, let's get to another question. Daryl has a question. You know, as far as getting like good FaceTime with agents, or maybe just a real estate office in general, do you think offering like continuing education for, courses, sessions is a good way to obtain that, continue to get that, as you said, FaceTime?
Yeah, I think it's a very good way. In our market, we did a lot of it for a long time and we charged fees and it worked great. And then the real estate regulatory body took it over and they made it in our state now, all real estate agents need continuing education, but the only continuing education they get credit for is from the regulatory body. So it cut all the continuing education providers out of the market. That happened in 2015 in our market. But for the previous 30 years, we did a lot of it. And if it's available to you, especially if people can earn continuing education credits, I think it's terrific. And it's especially terrific if you can do it in an engaging, a little bit different, semi-controversial way that catch people's attention, but most importantly, gives them something that solves a problem, meets a need, or helps them be more successful. So again, it can't be about you. It can't be about how terrific your company is and all your credentials. It will put
My
people to
apologies.
sleep. So that, if you can do it, it's also a great way to introduce new agents to you. So there's another twist on that, and that is offering courses to large real estate companies to orient their new agents who come in all the time. By the way, there's huge churn in real estate. As you probably know, agents are always coming and going in and out of the business. So if you can establish a relationship with a large real estate organization and offer to provide training for their new agents to give them a kind of home inspection 101, what to expect, how to behave, what to say, what not to say, how to prepare the house for the inspection, how to prepare the client for the inspection, some really common sense basic stuff, that can be a very powerful tool and get you well embedded in either the real estate board or the real estate company, and also start to build a relationship with the up and comer agents. Now, a lot of agents won't flourish and won't move forward in the business, but some will. And so if you're doing those kinds of courses, you're going to be exposed to the ones who ultimately will succeed as well. So that's a bit of a twist, but in either case, I would say yes.
My dog obviously agreed with you the entire way through there, Alan. So we are rocking and rolling that. Sorry if anyone heard that. Now, Ustav has a question. With regard to pricing, does pricing differ for you, or more specifically, Carson Dell, based on the size of the home, so square footage?
Yeah, our fees are based on two things: the square footage of the home and the age of the home. So I won't get into a lot of detail because I can't even remember it. It gets more complicated than I can get my head around. But yeah, the age and price of the home. I'll tell you a funny story about that. For a lot of years, we based our price on the purchase price of the home. And I really wish home inspectors hadn't undercut us on that. We got beat up so badly by all our competition who were pricing based on age and square footage, and how unfair it was to set our fees based on the house price. And the irony in that, it's left a mark on me. Because can you think of a profession who bases their fees on the price of the home? Well, that would be the real estate agent, right? And yet the real estate agents took us to task, and our competitor home inspectors took us to task for basing our fees on the purchase price of the home. I still bitterly resent the fact that we do not do that. It's the reality. I can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. We kind of caved on it. I often wonder what would have happened if we had stuck to our guns on that and just kept pricing based on the purchase price of the home. Yeah, sore point for me, sorry.
I will say home inspection hath no fury, but Alan scorn. So let's be mindful of. But truth be told, it's worth the investment. I completely agree, Alan. Now, before we get off on any further tangents, Daniel, I'm glad to see you here. He's one of our newest members of Horizon, and he has a question here about social media. Yeah, indeed. I don't like it. Simply put, I agree, my friend. I got a Facebook account for work. Don't tell Alan that's the only one I got, but that's the only thing I got. Oops, he's here. So is it smart for business, though?
Jury's still out for me. The reason I'm hesitating is we don't leverage it very elegantly, but I know a lot of home inspectors who get a huge percentage of their business from Facebook and other social media. So I'm going to say It probably works. It probably works better in some areas and some markets than others. It might work better for some inspectors than others. It might work better for more clever inspectors than myself and the Carson Dunlop team. It does make sense. It does leave you a little bit vulnerable to the point that I made earlier, that if you're going to rely on consumers and you're going to reach out and focus on consumers, then the real estate agent intermediary can trip that up. And so the elegant twist on that might be, why don't you reach out to the real estate community by social media, through social media? And that's a fair comment. So I guess my summation is, it probably works. I know it does for some. I just don't know how to do it well enough.
I think a lot of people are in the same boat there, sir. But thank you for the insights. William, I would love to be able to pronounce your last name, but I'm not going to try. But he is a student of Carson Dunlop's, and he loves the presentation, Alan. But if you had one word of advice, one just go get insight, perspective for William, what would it be? He's taken his journey on to a new horizon. Horrible pun. Everyone can shame me, but the beauty of it.
Yeah. I can't do it in one word. I'm not sure.
Oh, sorry, not one word, but just like I don't want to limit you to that because you're very eloquent. But if you had to say one thing to William on his journey,
what would I say to you, William? Trust your gut comes to mind. Be true to yourself, and I guess sort of core to what we've been talking about tonight is focus everything you do on your client first. And maybe that's the best way to leave it.
Simply put, aptly put, sometimes the best. Thank you, Alan. Jim, how do you deal with a realtor that's shady or unethical? And I'm sure you've had your handful of those from time to time.
And what was the question?
My apologies. How do you deal with a realtor or agent who's a bit shady or unethical? Add this to the summary. Maybe put this cost estimate in.
So before I answer, let me say, here's my read on real estate agents. Real estate agents are exactly like home inspectors, and exactly like carpenters, and exactly like policemen, and exactly like lawyers, and every other profession and trade I can think of. There are terrific ones, there are mediocre ones, and there are bad ones. I am very careful and very respectful. Top real estate agents, I have a huge amount of respect for. Top of anybody in their field, I have a huge amount of respect for. So are there bad apples out there? Sure. Are there bad apples in home inspection? Oh, you bet. So how do I deal with real estate agents who are shady? I stay right down the middle, as we talked about before. I take great care of my client. I pay attention to the client, even if that means ignoring the real estate agent or trampling them. And I won't do it in a confrontational way, but I will do it in an effective way. My client deserves the best service I can give my client. Being challenged by real estate agents on site about your findings as you go, incredibly frustrating. But I don't argue with them. I will often do and encourage our people to do a follow-up call to the client one-on-one after, to make sure that your client understands what you said. And you can say, others can have their own opinions. I'm giving you my professional opinion. That's my responsibility. So I want to make sure you heard me and you understood what I was saying. So what we have found over the years is the people who are not as upfront, and people who you might describe as shady, will not hang around and not work with you for very long. They will quickly see that you are not pliable, you won't sort of bend to their mold, and they will go away. And it took a while for us, but when we started, there were two of us, Bob Dunlop and myself. And in the beginning, there was a lot of pressure because home inspection wasn't a thing back then. You folks have now got all the benefits of our lumps over the years, and we had no education available, no training, no standards, no associations, no guidelines, no media on our side, and we certainly did not have the internet. So it was tough back then, but we made the decision to say, if we're going to be in this business over the long term, we cannot afford to slide to one side or the other. We've got to stay right down the middle of the road. And so if you do that, if you take care of your client and focus on them, those agents will not come back to you for very long. And the good news is they will not be very successful very long. The good agents that I know, the most successful ones, are also the most ethical ones.
Alan, thank you very much for your candid insights. Rico, another OG here. How's it going, Rico? Hope everything's well for you this evening. And in terms of talking about packages, bundling services and things together, I believe that packages can be a bit misleading because they have a price for every package, right? However, sometimes, it varies on square footage or things, but what is your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot of marketing that says there is significant power in offering clients a choice, and the good, better, best kind of package of your basic, your enhanced, and then your extreme home inspection is quite popular. Some of the most successful companies do it. Some of the big franchise companies do it. We have tried it. The part of the marketing wisdom of offering packages that falls apart for me a little bit is, remember when I told you 76% of our business comes from the real estate community? And a lot of the time it's the real estate agent making the booking. I find trying to upsell services or offer various packages to a real estate agent who's calling to book the inspection on behalf of their client throws up a roadblock. The agent's not in a position to make the decision for the client, nor are they interested in taking that message back to the client, nor are they going to be able to do it effectively. So the problem I have with upselling and packaging around home inspection is that intermediary gets in the way. And so we have come to the conclusion that although it is a broadly held marketing axiom that that is the right thing to do, we have decided that for us, simplicity wins over packaging. And so when people call and they want to book a home inspection, especially when it's an agent, but also often when it's a client, they have been through so many decision-making processes and they're emotionally so drained about the stress of buying a house that asking them to make more decisions or asking an agent to make more decisions when they're not in a position to be able to decide for their client and they don't have that authority, it muddies the water, it gets in the way, it slows things down. So for those reasons, we have pushed back from that and we are more simplistic. We will offer the thermal imaging, but very often it's done on site where the inspector will say, here's a situation that I'm finding. We do have the additional service, or people may have mentioned, this is a situation where it might be really valuable. So we do that from time to time. But yeah, packaging on the surface makes great sense. For me, not so much, but I understand I'm out of touch with a lot of people who feel differently. So I'm hesitant. I'm giving you my opinions. They aren't necessarily the right answer, but they're the right ones for us. Uh-oh, did I lose you, Brian?
You didn't lose me. Sorry, I was muting myself to temper as you talk, and then I was rambling on and thought that I wasn't muted. So first and foremost, we still have another 100 people in attendance, which is great. The Horizon community is strong and loving your insights, Alan. But at the same time, I'm realistic as to people's timelines. We set an expectation of 90 minutes, and I know we're doing some Q&A, and we're going to continue this trend. So what I'm going to say is, at the very least, I saw Alan's wine glass. It was it's got a couple sips remaining. So I think what we can do is continue on with Q&A until we hit that mark. And at that point in time, folks, we maybe will cap off for the evening. However, I do want to assure you that the questions we weren't able to address this evening, we'll follow up with quick an email. If there's so many questions that maybe we can do another little quick Q&A, we'll tackle that. But at the very minimum, if you didn't get an answer tonight from Alan himself, you're going to get an answer by email. If it's more of a technical question like, how do I edit this on my account? You're going to get an answer from me. Either which way, you're going to get a response. So without further ado, as he takes that sip, trying to get his way through, we're going to jump into another question here. And Dave has a question here. How much do you change or charge per property? So maybe let me rephrase that. How often should you raise your prices, and what's sort of the variance? Like, let's say between a 1,000 square foot home and a 3,000 square foot home, how much would you charge between the two? Standard inspection, everything else indifferent.
There's a very logical and mathematical way to do it, to say, how much more time does it take you? Which is one way to approach it. The problem becomes with home inspection, if you have a set amount of time during the day, and let's say your schedule allows you to do 2 inspections a day, increasing your price a little bit for square footage, and I might say on the short answer, kind of from 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, you might increase your price $50 or $75 because you still have the same travel, you still have one roof, you still have some things the same, although some are a bit more. There's a few more rooms typically. There might be a second furnace when you get to a certain size. But you have to consider too what the price will bear on the one side, what the market will bear in terms of price. But you also have to look at, if this puts me into a position where I can't do a second inspection that day, you need to increase your price more. Because if you do, let's say if your fee is $400 and you can do 2 inspections a day, that's $800. But if you get into a 3 or 4 or 5,000 square foot house that is so big, you can't do a second inspection that day, charging $500 or $550 or even $600 for that house means that instead of making $800 for the day on 2 $400 inspections, you're only making $600 on the day. It's not a great business strategy. So I'm going to say it's probably not a linear increase. So but I've given you some of the factors to think about. How much additional time is one easy way, but when you get to a threshold where you say, holy smoke, now I can't do a second inspection that day, I think you may want to say considerably more money for the larger house or the older house. That's the other way to look at it. I think we're around 1950, 1960, kind of 50, 60-year-old houses, 70, 80, somewhere in there. I don't remember the numbers exactly. But the older the house, the more likely there will be additions. There'll be older stuff. There'll be issues like, galvanized steel plumbing and knob and tube wiring and all that kind of stuff, and multiple layers of roofing, and just everything's more complicated. So you've got to be careful not to follow a linear logical path that looks good on a spreadsheet or on a price list, because it can get you into trouble in terms of inspection capacity.
Thank you, Alan.
That was a long answer, Brian. That was the last question. I'm now a minute over the clock even. A lot of people have to get down.
No way. I didn't see that wine glass getting sipped on. I don't think anyone else did either. You're on camera. Don't forget. So Chad would like to know, if you have researched your market pricing and find you're sort of like top of the price point, right? So I actually, maybe this would be very similar to Carson Dunlop in the GTA, right? You're the premier inspection service in a large regard. Would you still continue to increase your prices even if you're above your competition? How would you address that?
We've always done it, and what you will find, if you are the top price, you will find that others watch you, and when you change your prices, it won't happen immediately, but within months they will follow along, as I mentioned earlier. So go ahead. You're at the top because you're a leader. You may as well lead. Go do it.
So to your point about trend setting, right, and that home inspections are undervalued, it's a great way to improve the value across the board, not just for your own company, but for all the other inspection companies in your area and hopefully universally, or not universally, but nationally. Well, eventually universally, right? Depending upon what Elon does, but all in due time. Todd, yes, these webinars are recorded. Now, not only this one, but all of our past community webinars where Alan shares his insights about scheduling, booking inspections, writing reports, everything is available on our YouTube channel. So just check that out. And on Friday, we will send an email to everyone in the Horizon community with a link to this recording as well as all of our past ones. So you can check it out directly from there, Todd. Carl, he is a brand new inspector. And so welcome first to the Horizon community and welcome to the home inspection industry. And he thought, a great way to maybe gain some market traction on the PLI or pre-listing inspection side, right? The seller side would be offering maybe for a short time doing free inspections at no cost, right? Maybe for a positive review or in turn getting that referral business down the road. What are your thoughts on that?
Give it a shot.
Perfect. Simple, sweet. I love it. Okay. Earl says, being a new home inspector, do you suggest, what's maybe the single best piece of marketing advice, taken from tonight or just across the board now, given the constraints of COVID?
I think probably under the circumstances, a strong web presence, because people are doing more and more digitally and looking around and shopping, and you can't get out, you can't have the one-on-one meetings, you can't do office presentations. So I think that might be a starting point. It's not ideal, but it's probably one of the better things available under the circumstances.
Wow. Alan, speak of the devil, is there a company by happenstance that does websites, hosting? Maybe you're new to Horizon and don't want to spend any extra money for a couple months. I don't know. I think of something you maybe worked out. Tell me if I'm wrong.
You're right. You're right. We have a relationship with Inspector's Edge, and it's not a financial relationship, but it's a partnership relationship. So they take care of our customers. Brian's brought their website up. So that they take such good care of our clients. I've worked with Nelia Design, who's the company behind it, for 30 years now. And I think the world of these people. And they are graphic designers by background. They are website builders. They have a very cost-effective approach to this. They can make you look good for very little money. And for Carson Dunlop and Horizon people, they have preferred pricing, which is effectively zero for the first 6 months, as I recall. So they will build, they will help you design your brochures, they will do all kinds of stuff. Definitely well worth looking at. And as I say, I don't have a financial, I don't get any money for referring them. It's just that I respect them, and they use some of our content, and we've just had a very good relationship for a very long time. So I think that's one place to start.
Excellent, Alan. Thank you so much for that. And Robert and Earl asked, in reference to Neil Young, what's your favorite song?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Pardon me. In reference to Neil Young, what's your favorite song? Earl and Robert, question. What's your favorite Neil Young song?
That's a good question. I don't know. Harvest would be not bad. We'll leave it at that.
All right. Awesome. Ozzy, why do you hate Yelp? You're taking a stick at it for a bit.
Because they won't post valid positive reviews.
All right. I'll take it at that as well. Okay. You know what? Folks, we are coming to 10:10. Everyone has got a lot of questions in. I think at this point we're getting close to our fill. I would like to finish this off with two last questions there. So, Jason, Alan, you're a guru of realistic knowledge. This section had a question. So I picked this out of random, and as you can see, it was random because it's a statement. But Jason, love it. Alan, you're a guru of realistic knowledge. Keep the webinars coming. King Carson. Thank you, Jason. Or pardon me, Alan. You can speak for yourself.
Okay, I think it's.
Sorry?
You've got one more?
Yeah.
You got to let people go to bed.
I know. My apologies. And my sincere apologies if I mispronounce this. I try my best. Nilesh asked, since I'm a contractor, can I also offer my services? What are the pros and cons? This is a great question, I think, actually, to cap things off. So he's a home inspector plus a contractor. Can he promote his services in addition to the home inspection, maybe in the report as an appendix item? Take it away, Alan, as a last question.
Yeah, the short answer, in my opinion, is yes. The second part of the answer is you've got to be really careful with conflict of interest. Thirdly, you've got to be really careful with some regulatory bodies and some associations who do not allow it. Some allow it, but you cannot perform any work on the house you inspected. And a lot of state regulatory bodies say you cannot perform any work on a house you inspected for 12 months after the inspection. So not forever, but for a year after. So the obvious vulnerability to conflict of interest is if you happen to be a roofing contractor, you inspect a house and say it needs a new roof, and by the way, I'd be happy to put it on for you. People wonder, well, do I really need a new roof? So it's that perceived conflict of interest problem you've got to get around. So I think you can do it effectively by standing back from anything that, as I say, some state regulatory bodies say a year. I think there's lots of ways to address it, but yeah, so check and make sure you're not offside with anybody from a legal standpoint or an association standpoint that you might be involved with. And then treat your customers with respect, be absolutely upfront. Do not leave yourself exposed to a competitor or an agent saying something to a client that you didn't tell them about. So you don't ever want to be caught having to explain something that you weren't forthright about. As long as you can manage that, I would say go for it. Go ahead.
Alan, thank you. I think, simply put, from everyone in attendance, past, present, and I know in the future, we appreciate your time. You've spent 2 hours with us, and not just your time, everyone's time. So the people that are still with us, thank you. We really appreciate you coming in this evening, taking the time to share your questions, your insights. Just take the time to be part of the community. Especially in these trying times worldwide, it really feels nice to have people around that you can relate to, you can share commonality with. And I think the biggest tying in factor is you, Alan. So without home inspection, with anything else, is there something you could leave us with as parting words till next month?
Yeah, hang tight. COVID is not forever. It's been a privilege to be able to talk to you folks with modern technology and feel like I'm part of a community. As you can tell, I get engaged. I love it. I love the conversation. I love the interaction, and I love, quite frankly, the quality of the people and the quality of the questions. You have my respect. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting up with me for 2 hours plus, and look forward to next month. And it looks like I better bone up on pre-listing inspections.
They're going to take you to task, Alan. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. And, good luck on any forthcoming inspections. Make sure to reach out for any technical support you need. We're always there for the assistance at support. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Alan.
Brian, thanks for everything. Have a great night, everyone.